You know what I see way too much of lately? Bad advice. And that bad advice is coming from people who just started a business last week. They haven't made any money. They haven't lost any money. They haven't really been through anything, but they're online trying to tell you how to run yours. Now, that is obviously not what this channel is about. This channel is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Over 23 years of running a pressure washing business, 14 years of running a lawn care business, and 3 years of building Quote IQ, all of that before retiring from a corporate sales job where I was generating over $30 million per year for somebody else. So I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge and the platform to help folks that actually want it. And look, I've shared everything from landing big $200,000 TPO roof cleaning that took us 2 weeks to finish to killing $15,000 worth of koi fish when we first got started. I share it all. I don't hold anything back. But the other day, I saw a comment that really got me thinking and it made me stop and reflect because the question was, what's the biggest mistake that you've made in your business that you have never talked about on YouTube? And I thought, damn, that is a really good question. So I sat down and I started to reflect about what that story could be. And one of the first things that hit me was this massive roof job that we quoted almost 18 years ago. This was a huge apartment complex, two-story buildings, two breezeways in each, 43 buildings total. And this was back when we were just getting into larger scale roof washing jobs. Okay. We'd done a bunch of houses. We'd done a handful of some townhome communities, simple one story, walkable roofs, easy enough. But this one was a little bit different. This was going to be the biggest roof cleaning job that we had ever taken on. And I wanted it because we all know how profitable roof washing is. And real quick, before I get into the story, if I would have had Quote IQ back then, half of this never would have happened. I didn't have a way to track equipment maintenance. I didn't have a scheduling dashboard. I had no visual property measurement ability. Now with Quote IQ, I can send quotes, I can measure properties with satellite imagery that's all attached to our pricing matrix. I can manage jobs, employees, expenses, notes, all from my phone. I wish I had it back then. It would have saved me a ton of time and money. And if you don't have Quote IQ, go to myquoteiq.com and try it for free with a 14-day trial. But back to the job. So I quoted $850 per building. That's 42 buildings. That's just over $36,000, which I knew was going to be a huge payday for my business. So back then, we had been through the gamut with different roof washing equipment, electric, gas, air diaphragm, and now we're back to gas. But for that job, way back then, we were still running a 12-volt electric pump, 5.5 gallon per minute. Not the best setup for big roofs like this, but I didn't care. I was fired up and we wanted to get this job done. So we rented 2 lifts. I had 3 guys working, including myself, and we had 2 trailers rolling. And I'm thinking we can knock this out in maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I pocket a really fat check, and then we are on to the next job. Wrong. My first mistake was making assumptions. Okay. So we get up on the first roof and immediately we're sinking, right? The plywood underlayment was soft, it was spongy, and it felt like it was almost like a trampoline. I still remember like the uneasy feeling when I was up there. And I felt like we were going to fall through really at any time. And that was on almost every single building. Now, nobody had told me that there was issues during the initial walkthrough. And I didn't think to throw up a ladder and walk one of these roofs myself. I just assumed. And that's mistake number one. Never assume that a roof is solid until you've walked on it. And there are a lot of other assumptions that we need to not make. But the good thing is we had lifts that got us up there and at least to 3 sides of the building. The backs we couldn't get to. We couldn't get the lift back there, but we could walk on the spongy ass roof and we could shoot the backside from the top. And listen, things like this is exactly why I created How to Wash Too. Inside the program, we walk you through everything from the chemicals, how to mix them, the equipment, the processes, procedures for both commercial and residential properties. We talk about property protection. We do property walkthroughs, you name it. All the things that I've learned over the past 23 years now condensed into one training. So you don't have to scour the internet and get bad information. It's going to save you thousands of dollars and it's going to get you started the right way. So if you're thinking about starting a pressure washing or soft washing business, check it out. It's 50% off now. There's a link below. So the second mistake is underestimating the cleanup. Lots of pine needles. And when I say lots of them, I mean pine trees everywhere, pine needles all over the roofs. Now the buildings, they all backed up to wooded areas. So we could blow them off on the back. That was fine. But the front of each building, again, covered with pine needles. And we didn't really budget for that cleanup, but I did have helpers on the ground that were watering. So they just had rakes, blowers, and lots of bags full of stuff that we blew off the roofs. Okay. It was time consuming. And if you've ever tried to clean up pine straw off the ground, wet pine straw, no less, it's miserable, right? Breaking bags and then finding a place to dump it all. It's just something that I needed to take into consideration, which I didn't. Now, the third mistake, and this is probably the biggest one, and this is why I am telling you this story in the first place, was no redundancy, no backups. Okay. So those first two things, they weren't too bad. We adapted, we overcame like we always do. But the real gut punch came on day two, and we had 8 buildings done at that point. Roofs blown off, chemicals applied, rinsed down, the mess on the ground cleaned up. And then one of our 12-volt pumps just took a crap, right? Not a huge surprise. They are consumables. We know this now. They were cheap and we were pushing them hard. And it is what it is. But here's the problem. I didn't have a backup. Amazon Prime wasn't a thing. L&H Industrial didn't exist back then. So we were down to one 5.5 gallon per minute pump, and we had a shit ton more buildings to do, right? And we worked that second pump absolutely to death. And by day 3, guess what happened? It died too. So now I'm stuck. I've paid for the lifts. That's expensive. I've got guys on the payroll, and that's not cheap. I've got no work scheduled for those guys because of this job that I had lined up. And the customer had a deadline. They had an inspection coming up and they needed this done by a certain date. And they also had 3 other properties in Savannah. And I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted to do what we said we were going to do, follow through, right? So what do? I did something that I knew was not a good idea. In fact, I knew it was a really bad idea. So I had the guys drain the water tanks to about halfway. I sent them over to Doyle Chemical. That place doesn't exist anymore. It was an industrial supply spot that we used to buy our SH from. And I told the guys to fill the tanks with a 50-50 mix. And we're going to run this straight mix, a 50-50 blend, through the pressure washing pumps. Okay. Now, here's the truth. I knew exactly what that was going to do. Okay. I wasn't clueless. I knew that it was going to destroy those 2 pressure washing pumps. But at that point, it wasn't desperation. It was a calculated risk. Okay. This job was going to pay us over $36,000, right? A new 5.5 gallon per minute pressure washing pump, about $1,200. Even if I burned up 2 of them, I knew that I could replace them with the profit from the job and still come out way ahead. So we were on a deadline, like I said. The customer had those inspections coming up. And more importantly, like I said, they had the potential to be a really good customer for a really long time. And this wasn't just one job that I was thinking about. It was a door to future work. So I said, fuck it. These machines, they're going to die anyway. So let's kill them with purpose. And that is exactly what we did. We finished the job using that 50-50 mix. And back then it was a 12.5 mix, 50-50. So, I mean, you're spraying 6%, 6.5% through these pressure washing pumps. And these machines were absolutely toast by the end, completely trashed. But the property looked great. The customer was thrilled, and we delivered on what we promised that we were going to do. And we got hired again to clean the other 3 properties for that same company. Now, we still have great relationships with them to this day, and we work with the managers, even though they moved to some new properties. And it's a really good thing, right? But here's the best part. This job forced me to finally upgrade, right? I was being cheap, I was being skimpy, and I didn't want to invest. And so we were forced to buy new equipment. So we made the jump to 8 gallon per minute machines, and that changed absolutely everything. Our jobs got done faster. Crews were more efficient. Margins improved. We stopped limping through big projects and started dominating them. So yeah, I knowingly trashed a couple of 5.5 gallon per minute pressure washers, but that decision, it completely shifted how we operate even today. So looking back, it was the best bad decision that I ever made. So look, you're going to make mistakes in business. It's part of the process. We all do it. But the trick is to learn from them and learn from them fast. And ideally, learn from other people's mistakes before you have to make them yourself. I didn't have that luxury, so I made them for you. Now, that roof job, it was a turning point for our business. It was the first time like I felt like I had taken on something that was way bigger than I was ready for, but it also was the moment that I realized that you either figure it out or you don't. So I figured it out, we upgraded, and we moved to the 8 gallon per minute machines. And that was a real turning point for how we ran our business, right? Reinvesting back into the business, making smarter decisions. And if you want to get ahead, Don't forget QuoteIQ, How to Wash 2, both built for business owners who are serious about growing the right way. So that is it. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one.